Hello, how are y'all doing? So, don't worry, I have my hands bandaged up. I don't know if you guys get this, but I get, it's almost like a surface bruise, but there's nothing there and it just kind of aches. If you take, sports tape, which I usually keep around because I have kids, cut it in half and wrap right where you hold your pen. It'll help a lot with that feeling. And in about 2 to 3 days, it goes away. So, that's a tip for y'all. That'll help you if you're having issues like, if you're a writer and you get that soft spot in your finger or do anything with a pen or something like that, it'll help you too. It's really cool. So I am down. Johnny's nose is right here. This is his mouth. We're working on that area today. I just posted a picture for you guys earlier of what it looks like from his nose up. I have my containers right here. As you can see, I'm using them to put some extra weight on it to... I got a couple just a couple colors that keep popping. And it's just that 3 colors. That's it. They keep popping on me. So I put these on here to put the weight down. There are all full of diamonds, so they're pretty heavy. And when I get ready to do the bottom half, I'm going to take it, once I get done with his mouth actually, I'm going to take it in my garage and go ahead and seal it, the top half of it, so that it's all nice and flat. Because I know as soon as I take these off, it's not going to take much time for them to pop back up. So I think I'm going to do a half seal and turn around and fix it. But it is what it is. How y'all doing today? Everybody's doing good here. My oldest is going to be 25 on Monday. She has asked for a SpongeBob cake. Leave it to my kids to be oddballs. Let's see if I can get another tray. The color I was working on is on the sides, and we need to see right here. So, how's everybody doing? How's your weekend? I know a few of my friends are having a rough time right now. And we want to send love and prayers to them for strength and guidance. I wanted to do... Some people have asked me, because I went through nursing in the military, and asked me if I had tales of what ER clinical was like and stuff like that. So I figured I would give you guys some of ER moments that I had that were gross and horrific, but I'm not going to get very descriptive. My first night working the ER, we had a soldier that was deployed's wife and child be rushed in from a car accident, to find out that she was 3 times over the legal limit and her 2-year-old child was not strapped in. And they put them both in the same curtain. So I was working on the child, because in my mind, working on the mother wasn't going to get far, because she had to come off the alcohol before we could give her anything or really do much of anything. She was stable, so we wanted her to kind of dry out before we did any major things. So I was working on her 2-year-old, and she was asleep. The mom was asleep, so I just walked around towards the mom, where mom was, had my back to her, and I was working on the baby, and she literally grabbed my back of my jacket and pulled me to her and said, "Quit fucking working on that child. The child can die. You better get me something for this damn pain." And I looked straight at her and I said, "Ma'am, I ain't giving you shit." said, you almost killed your child because you didn't even buckle her into the seatbelt. And she goes, I don't give a out of that child. I don't care. The father shouldn't have left me alone with her. So I went out to the doctor, told the doctor what was going on, and the doctor went in there and he said, well, ma'am, we're not going to give you nothing until your blood alcohol is at a legal limit. She goes, I will sue you, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, you do know that you're in a Army hospital that's free funded to you, and you can't sue because you and your husband signed the contract when you became military. And she goes, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that. She ripped her IV out. She was getting ready to yank the child up off the table, and I swung. I put her on her ass. She went to go grab for the child, and I just literally scooped the child up in my arms and just swung the other way. When she went to go grab her, she hit the floor. And I told her, I said, over my dead body, you'll see this child again. And she never did. She lost custody. She was, her husband was called back to the States for her reactions and actions. And he was pretty much told by his officer, you either divorce her and keep your child, or lose your child and keep her. And evidently she's not worth much keeping. So he divorced her, got full custody. But that in turn turned around and he had to come up with some kind of plan for the child when he was out of the country. They don't much care for single parents coming in because of that. So when a parent that's in becomes a single parent, it's a hairy situation. But he did end up keeping his child, got full custody. The child ended up fine, thankfully. She had 2 broken ribs on her right side. Luckily, no head trauma. And her wrist was broke on the right side, and her top of her foot of the right side was broke. Because when she came, I guess she was laying in the chair on her left side, so when she came flying out, she hit the back of the seat with the right side of her body. And then I was doing a rotation about, I'd say 6 to 8 months later. And we had this girl come in, and she took a pregnancy test. It was negative. But she kept having these really horrifying screaming pains, and she couldn't understand why. The girl couldn't have been a day over 16, maybe 15. And I couldn't understand why this girl kept saying, she had this, everybody thought it was a sexually transmitted disease. It was white, creamy, like white, creamy, but it felt like it had paper in it. Because I had my gloves and I had it between my fingers like this, and it wasn't breaking apart like mucus. It was staying pretty consistent. So I had, when I went in the Army, I actually became a labor and delivery nurse. So I had to do work as far as female patients and pregnancies and all that kind of stuff downstairs before they brought me upstairs to work the upstairs area. And this little girl, she's like, I have a tampon in. And we're like, oh, well, maybe that's mixed with this. Let's go ahead and get it out. And she goes, oh, I thought they don't come out. And me and this girl that I was interning with looked at each other and said, you're supposed to pull one out and reapply the new one. And she started scratching her head, and we're like, She's like, show me where it says that on the box. So the girl I was with went and got a box and brought it back and showed it to her. This girl had done shoved 4 of them in her already. She had to do a complete DNC. And all me and the other girl can do is freaking shake our heads. How dumb some of these kids are. And she's just like, I don't understand why you guys are being like this. It's like, honey, it says on the box not to do this. This can cause a lot of infections. Could have made you sterile where you couldn't have kids. And she's like, well, that would have been a good thing anyway, because the way my mom raised me, I wouldn't be shit for a parent anyway. And I'm like, well, at least you're honest. I can give you that. Those were my 2 worst ER moments. I mean, we've dealt with car wrecks and soldiers coming back from overseas that were still trying to heal and all that kind of crap. But I had once I got into the labor and delivery ward, I went up to, I started in, they have 2 different labor and delivery wards. I don't know if most posted this, but there's 2 different labor and delivery wards. There is the, what they call the commoners, which is private all the way up to first lieutenant. And then there's the high class, which is your second lieutenant, first lieutenant, all the way up. And I started in the lower class, which I was great. I enjoyed. I used to take a baseball catching mitt. And when it was time to start pushing, just to keep the woman's mind off of what she was really doing, I'd stand at the end of the bed and go, okay, I gotta catch this baby now. Come on, I gotta catch this baby. You need to push so I can catch this baby. You gotta shoot her out. And one of the higher up wives heard of my story of how I was so easy, you know, so fun in labor and delivery, and I made them laugh through their labor. And so I had a colonel's wife who 100% pushed me to the upper labor ward, and she demanded that I was 100%, whether it was my day or not, I was going to be in her labor and delivery room. Cool. Glad you like what I do. Glad you like the atmosphere I make. Okay, let's do this. She was in labor for 16 hours. When she went to push and saw me come out with that glove and mitt, that glove, she started laughing so hard that she didn't realize that she was pushing the baby out with her laughter. And she had the baby, and she had a fully natural birth. She did no drugs. And she said the only reason she was able to do it was because of me. Because I made her laugh all the way through it. And I said, well, I'm glad I was helpful. I'm glad I was useful. And I'm glad that you were able to withstand the pain to have your natural childbirth like you wanted. And she goes, yeah, I did. She goes, and we're going to be here for the next 6 years from what I was told. I said, yes, ma'am. It sounds like you just got here. And she said, yeah, I got here about 4 months ago. And one of the guys had told my husband about this labor nurse that made his wife laugh all the way through her labor and made her feel comfortable and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, we need to find that nurse, and you need to have that nurse, especially since you want to do natural childbirth. She might actually help distract you enough from the pain. So she did. She found me. It didn't take her long. She had me moved up, and I was fully thinking that I was just going to go right back down once her labor and delivery was over. And I ended up being promoted permanently to that spot, which I was grateful with, because I don't know why. It just seemed like the wives of the upper class weren't so mouthy and ignorant, and we had a lot of issues with them cussing us and all kinds of crap. Like we were the dirt on their feet. Or they were just having the child to trap the man, to keep the man type thing. I know I had a few cases where the husband, and I throw that term lightly with these guys, but the husband was forced to marry because they got the girl pregnant, and I find it very, very funny that all of them had paternity tests before they even left the hospital. And out of 9, only 3 were actually the parent. The rest of them filed for divorce the next day with the paternity test in hand, which I don't blame one bit, because there are women out there that try to trap military people thinking, oh, they got all this money. And I hate to tell you, until you're about E5, E6, I'd say E6 more, you're not really making that good of money. No matter what you guys think, these militaries don't make shit. They really, really don't. You gotta really love what you're doing, or be young and live in the dorms to have any real money to put up. Or live in like Japan or somewhere where they're holding you in a dorm, and you're getting special stipending because you're considered overseas. And that's just how it is, really. A lot of people think that these military guys are, oh, they're making bank. I'm sorry to tell you, honey. I was making $1,150 a month as an E2, and then went up to $1,286 as an E3. It wasn't much difference. So don't do that, because these military boys, when they're on a military base, they can get that paternity test quickly, because the military doesn't want to have to pay for a wife and child that isn't their child. If they can help them get out of it, they will, because they prefer you to stay single anyway, because you're more flexible to move, easier to move, blah blah blah. You got less stuff to move and all that fun crap. So if you want to be with a military person, you gotta 100% be in with the military person. You need to do as they tell you to keep their butts out of trouble, because if you get pulled over, they get in trouble. If you get caught stealing, they get in trouble. So whatever you do, you're representing them. So you have to stay clean with them. And a lot of people don't realize that their actions do affect their spouse's job. So if you really, really want to be with somebody in the military, you really need to think about it. And think hard. And be positive in what you want and all that fun stuff. Yeah, it's cool. You get to move around. see different sides of the country, see all the different things, but you have to look at the other side of the whole equation too, because when they go overseas to fight, you're going to be alone, and you're going to have to deal with being alone. And believe me, you think they don't know you're cheating? They know. Somebody at that post knows them, and somebody at that post has been probably told to watch over you. Just because their whole unit's gone doesn't mean they don't know somebody in another unit. And I've known quite a few that got busted that way. And honestly, I think it was... They're like, oh, it is not their business. They need to keep their nose out. Yeah, well, that's their battle buddy. It is their business. Because when you become in the service, you become a brother or a sister to every person that's in the service. And we are taught from day one to cover our brothers and sisters back at all times. And that's just one way we do it. We make sure that they're not coming home to a disaster as much as possible. We make sure that they know what's going on at home. Especially if you're calling home and the person's usually, you know, home every night at 6 o'clock, and then all of a sudden now they're not home ever whenever you call in from overseas, which is a very rare, depending where they're at, can be very rare to get a phone call. So why would you not want to be home to make it? I mean, you really want to be home to talk to them. And that can make their heads spin like no tomorrow, because they don't know what's going on. All they know is you're not answering the phone. They don't know if you're hurt, something happened to you, yada yada yada. So think twice about being with a military person. And I'm not trying to scare people off. I just want you to know how your actions can affect them. And especially if they come home with some kind of trauma, PTSD or anything like that. Your love and your honesty and your strength is going to be needed so much to help that person, because I hate to say it, the VA really don't give two craps about any of us. They're all, oh, the VA loves. No. They don't care. I'm still fighting. I've been out since 2011. I'm still fighting for compensations that I deserve. And I have finally had to get a lawyer involved so I can get my compensations. It doesn't help when I have an ex-husband and his wife going around telling people I never served, blah, blah, blah. And then I look at them flat out with a certificate in my damn hand. My license plates say honorable. Because when you're medically retired out, there is no special tag for that. And yet they still want to, oh, she never was in, she didn't do this, she didn't do that. And I'm thinking, how dumb are you? Do you not know how to read, comprehend, anything like that? I mean, your job contains of writing reports and everything. You should know how to read. Especially a divorce paper. I mean, it clearly states that I'm the one that filed. It clearly states why I filed. So, if your papers are saying different, you might want to call the courthouse, because the ones that you're reading are wrong. You're being misinformed. And you're being misinformed, and you're being used to sustain people in the realm of money and status that that person's always wanted. I was raised differently. I was raised to earn everything I've got. Some people were raised to, every 2 years, change out their vehicles and have a flashy house when you don't have any children or don't have any need for it. And I don't get those kind of people. I don't get how dumb some of these women can be and how they use so much ignorance on facts. It's really, really not. I wonder if these women that say they have all this book smarts, I always look at them and go, so where's your street smart? Because if you're believing everything that's coming out of somebody's mouth that has lied to many people and not listen to what those people are telling you for a reason, because they've been known by these people their whole lives, most of their lives, I can't help you. And I'm not going to, because it's not my job. My job was to move on and enjoy my life, and that is what I am doing. Very clearly, and enjoying it all. And the kids are doing great. Jaden's enjoying his video games. He's downloading a new game he's enjoying right now. And Lena's enjoying her first job. And Miranda took the whole week off, which she always does every year. She takes her birthday week off so she can enjoy a break. That's her vacation time. Unless for some reason they've been planning. One year they went to Florida. And she actually used her vacation time for that. And then had, I think, 2 days left to take. The way her work fell, because her birthday was on Saturday. So she took Friday off. And then took Monday off. So she had a 4-day weekend. Because she works third shift. So it's kind of... their Friday was a Thursday night, but if you didn't take Friday off and your birthday was on Saturday, you would have to come in on Saturday. So if you took Friday off, it took you out of the running to have being on Saturday if they're running. And at the time, they were running 7 days a week. But because she took that Friday off, she was not in the realm of having to be there over the weekend because she was off on Friday. So she took Friday and Monday and had her little 4-day weekend. This year she took, starting tonight, which is, she's supposed to be at work tonight, but she started her vacation tonight. And she is off till next Saturday. So I'm glad she's finally getting some time off and a break. Last time she had a good break was last year at this time. She was off for 2 weeks transferring jobs, which she had taken her week vacation like she always did over her birthday. And then when she was supposed to come back is when she said that she wasn't going to come back. And they're like, oh, you're not going to give us 2 weeks? And she goes, why? Because as soon as we turn in a 2-week notice, you walk us out the next day. Which is true. That company was really bad about, if you gave a 2-week notice trying to do the right thing, they would just, as soon as they handed it to you, they would process it. And the next day when you came in, when you went to go home that next day, they would literally walk you to your car and then make sure your car goes out the gate, and that then you're put on the list not to come back in. So, and that's Nissan for you people, if you guys want to know. That's Nissan. That's how they treat their employees. And their cars ain't put together worth of crap. I can tell you that. If you own a Murano, my blood's probably in it, because the glove department that goes in the center has a metal bracket in it, and that metal bracket used to cut the shit out of my arms. It literally, I actually had 2 people in Walmart come and ask me if I was cutting myself, because they were slashes. I mean, you can see some of the markings still on my arm, right there, there, and there, of how many times I would hit, because the way we had to flip them, I would hit my arm on that damn thing every time. And even if I wore a long shirt, it didn't matter. It still cut through. I even used the sleeves that they give us, and that didn't work either. So mine and one of my buddies that was on the press with me, our blood's in Murano up from 2016 to 2019. And that is when I had to quit working for good. My neuropathy had gotten so bad that I couldn't put on shoes, I couldn't stand. Even though I had a sit-down job, I had to walk every hour in the plant and pick up parts. And it just got to be too much, and we had to wear certain kinds of shoes, and I can't even put on regular tennis shoes, let alone trying to put on damn steel toes. So I have been out of work now 2 years, going on June was 2-year mark. And I can't say, I do miss working. I really do. I was a single mom for a very long time. I worked 2 jobs. I got used to working 2 jobs. When my son was born, my ex-husband wanted me home with him, didn't want him in daycare until he was 4. This is when I finally got him to agree to let Jane go to daycare, so that I could be in school full-time at least. So he started going to daycare, which he needed. I told him he needed to kind of get acclimated to other kids so that we didn't have a hard time when it came to school starting. And we still ended up having a hard time because his dad literally refused for him to be... Jane went through 2 years of kindergarten because the first year, his dad refused the whole year for me to have him tested for ADHD. Kept saying no, it's because the teacher's lazy. The second year we worked with the principal, got him into an older teacher, and yet again he was having still the same behavioral problems. And they called me in because they knew I was the custodial parent and the parent that was with him every day, and they said, okay, we need to have him tested, we need to find out what's going on. And I said, well, my hands are tied. I can't, because we have 50-50 rights on his medical. I can't do it without his permission. And she said, okay. She goes, and he won't do it. And I said, no, he's told me he's not going to do it, that it's just because your teachers are lazy and blah, blah, blah. And she said, okay. She goes, is this phone number I'm filing? I said, yes, ma'am, it is. She goes, okay. Because Jaden was pretty much sitting in her office most of the day, every day, because he got in trouble and the teachers couldn't deal with him because he was so damn hyper. And I tried everything. His pediatrician wanted them tested. The school wanted them tested. And they understood that my hands were tied. So the school called and they said they might have to file child endangerment charges for the welfare of the child, and this is part of his welfare. He needs to be tested for this. And I don't know what else they said to him, but I know that all of a sudden I was being called to my doctor's office, and said that the test was signed off on. They tested him. It's called a Vandy test. And he tested so high on the chart that the chart didn't even, like, he went up and it was gone. So they started him on Focalin. And the only reason they started on Focalin is just in case he wasn't getting his medications on weekends, which he was not for the first few years while he was with his dad. So the medication I had him put on was a day by day, not a medication that has to be consistently in the system to work. And the other one was an anxiety medication. I still couldn't get that to go down him when I wasn't around. So he would get it on Friday night just before he would leave, and he would get it as soon as he got home on Sunday. And since I had him where he was only missing one dose at a time, it wasn't affecting him according to the doctors. That went on for 2 or 3 years. And then finally it turned around to, where's his medicine? I need his medicines now. I'm going to give him his medicines because I have to look right in front of everybody. I don't know what the flip-flop was. I don't really care what the flip-flop was because I was doing what I needed to do, and that was just the way it was. But when you have children, please, please, please do what's best for them. Don't do what's best for your pocket, because that's all that was worried about, was how much money am I going to lose, how much money am I going to have to spend. And I'm just, have you ever had those moments where you just kind of bit your lip and went, okay? Well, I had quite a few of those moments. Quite a few. But with my dad's help, I was able to do everything I needed to for my boy. I was working part-time, and I was still getting my compensation from school, which helped because that was giving me my money that I needed for housing. They gave me housing allowance every month as long as I was in school, so that made everything good. And then I was working part-time, which is the first time I had worked since I left the military. So I wanted to start part-time and kind of get back into the swing of things with my knee and all that fun stuff. I started working for a gas station. I did that for almost 2 years. And then I moved to working full-time at the post office. And I did that for 4 or 5 months, which I was kind of glad to be let go and not kept, because they do the keep and throw out, keep and throw out. I was kind of glad I wasn't kept because it was doing a lot of strain on my knee. As much as I loved it, I enjoyed it. I worked in an area that had country stars. I've actually sat down with George Jones' wife after he had passed. I had brought a package to her, and she made me sit on her porch and drink lemonade because she thought I looked a little too hot. Because it was dead of summer, and those freaking death trap trucks, they have no air in them. Your air is literally hot air blown at you through a fan that's only about that big around. So I went through a lot. I used to go to Shell, because when we gassed up, we left the post office and Shell was on the corner. And when we went into Shell, I would run in and get the biggest cup of ice, and because they had the good small ice, I would fill that cup all the way up with ice, and then put my, I got 2 of them. One I would fill all the way up with Gatorade and ice, And the other one I filled all the way up with water and ice. The water and ice I would put in my cooler. I would drink my Gatorade and ice first. Once that was done, I kept my cups because then you got, when it was refilled, was a different price. And you can obviously see which cup was which because my Gatorade was red, so the inside of my cup was red. And then my water, obviously the cup stayed white. And then and I did that every day. I worked a 16-day stretch before I got a day off. I had to work every Sunday because I had to do Amazon runs. Literally, that's all we did on Sundays was Amazon runs. They don't do regular mail, obviously, on Sunday. And if you live in the country like I do, we don't do Amazon runs on Sundays here. But I was working in Franklin, which is big time, one of the big time money areas. A lot of areas where you had to have pins to get into the subdivision, and then another pin to get into the house area, which most of them had their mailboxes out front, but if they had a package it wouldn't fit, we were to ring them, let them know it's sitting next to their mailbox and they need to come get it. I had one, the regular driver told me, when you drop off at this address and you ring to tell them that it's there, make sure you have your phone where you video it and all that fun stuff, because she's very big on calling the post office and saying it was stolen, that she never got it, nobody ever rang her, and blah blah blah. So I actually got in that habit a lot when I had to leave bigger packages outside because you couldn't get in the gate to get up their driveway to take it to them like we're supposed to. So over half my phone was videos of me videoing the drop-offs, and I slid them over onto an SD card through my computer, and that way if it ever came up, I had each one of them with the addresses on them. So all they had to do was pull it up and look the date, the address, and they can say, well, this was videoed on this date. You are informed because you're answering your call button. And about 2 months later, 2 or 3 months later, that lady ended up turning her stuff into a P.O. box because she got tired of being told that she was lying about stolen packages, about packages not delivered, that we were stealing them from her and taking them home, and which would put us in prison because that's a federal offense. That's why if you ever seen where these drivers are dumping mail into dumpsters and stuff, that's actually a federal offense. You get a good amount of jail time for that. It's not pretty. And yes, they say the federal is a better prison. I don't care. I don't want to see any prison. I don't want to see it. Nope, not my cup of tea. I've never had a DUI because I don't drink and drive. I've never done any type of major drugs. I was that goody-goody two-shoe kind of kid. I was the one all my cousins called when they got in trouble because they were doing drugs. I had one that got high on Christmas Eve night. Not on his own. He was slipped. He literally had been slipped something in his drink. But his mom was having Christmas that morning, and he had a big old gash on his head. He literally walked around with a beanie on his head all day. And did not tell his mom until after the Christmas party, so that he would not ruin Christmas for everybody. So different things happen through life. We had somebody show up to our house that had handcuffs on them. because the cops got him handcuffed and all that, and then they took off with the handcuffs still on him. Yeah, that was interesting. And unfortunately, yes, we did know them. And I have to say, at least it wasn't from my family. I think it was my stepmom's family, or somebody that knew my stepmom. Where my dad lives, they're on quarter acres. And 5 houses down has this big oak tree. It's got to be 110 at least years old, because it's huge. In my dad's neighborhood, when you leave his house, it's a curve that goes around this way. Well, the guy that was coming, the tree is like right here. The guy was coming like this. He didn't make the curve, and he hit that bitch head on. And he had like an older Lincoln, like 80s style big Lincoln, and it made a V all the way through the car, all the way to the tail end. It was just literally a V all the way through. There was a baby in the front middle seat. There was his girlfriend in the front and 2 kids in the back. He hit that tree so hard, my bird cage in my dad's house shook, along with the TV and everything else in our house. That's how hard he hit it. But he jumped out of the car before the car hit. And her brother found him at the bar and was beating his you-know-what until the cops showed up. So that was definitely a scene. My dad told me to call 911, told me I didn't need to be down there to see what it was, and I remember, I want to say it was early high school years, but I think it was earlier than that. I want to say it was like 8 or 9. Because my stepmom had this dumb cockatiel that was so damn annoying. That fucking bird never showed up. It never showed up. They would put the damn towel over it every night. Still didn't shut up. He would gawk and gawk and gawk. And as soon as the sun would peek through the damn window, with the blanket on or not, he would start squawking until you came and took that damn blanket off. There are times that I wanted to feed it poison and kill it. Times I wanted to go in there and just grab its neck. Because I was the first bedroom off the kitchen, so I heard it the frickin' worst. To the point that I got where I was sleeping with a stereo and headphones, so I would not hear it in the morning, so I could actually sleep in for once. But those are some of my childhood stories, some military stories, some life things that I've been through and seen. I know I don't usually do a lot of that because I have people that try to get in my business too much. So I try to limit how much I talk about my growing up and things like that. So, but I thought it would be something nice to do, fun to do. Some questions that I've been asked and over on other things. As far as my ER, I had to do 8 months ER rotation at 4 days a week. So I didn't have much that wasn't just regular stupid crap. Those 2 were the big main what the hell moments, if you know what I mean. But other than that, I know you guys are gearing up for Halloween. I want to say happy trick or treat. Next weekend's going to be a very hard weekend for me and my family. It'll be the 1 year since my brother was killed in Nashville. Still have no answers. Nobody really wants to do anything about it. They did have another death not too long ago with the same circumstances. So maybe something will start getting investigated now. Who knows? But we know it's going to be a hard weekend. We are gearing up for trick-or-treating. We're going to do trunk or treat this year at my oldest one's work because they do a big trunk or treat for the kids. And then get ready for Thanksgiving, which is my holiday because my birthday is lands on Thanksgiving every 7 years. So Thanksgiving's always been big in my family. And I will probably put something out before Halloween. I'm going to try. It just depends on how bad this weekend goes for all of us, this upcoming weekend. With it being the 1 year, we're going to try to do the whole balloon release and all that kind of jazz. But I want you guys to know to always, always love one another, hug one another, and be kind to each other, because you never know whose life you can change. You might have somebody that is just down and out, and you smiling and say hi might change their thought for a minute. So always say hi, always be courteous, always be kind, and always help. Love y'all.